Hi, everybody. Angela here today with Xenia from Austria. You're coming to us from
Uh,
Austria, right?
yeah,
Awesome. So today we're going to talk about education. You know, Xenia has a lot of experience with homeschooling and with envisioning new creative ways to educate. She's written a book, Why Polymaths, and we're going to be talking about education today. And we'll talk about her book on another recording soon, I promise.
yes.
um, Okay, so to start, Xenia, well, do you want to introduce yourself and say anything about your background or who you are?
Yeah, sure. It would be good. So, I have a degree in linguistics and education, so it's kind of double. And at the same time, most of my professional activities were focused on somehow it happened this way, how it usually happens, that life shows you some other directions. So somehow I landed at HR. So, and I was over 15 years, I was in roles like HR manager, recruiter, headhunter, all these consultants, career consultants, so all of that covering personal questions. And that's parallel to that, I was running still my educational activities, sometimes more, sometimes less. And I covered childhood education and adult education, both. So pedagogy is one of my focuses also, even like more pedagogy than adult education. Although I'm good at that, but it's not so interesting for me. So education of children is more interesting, more like you can do more in a way that it's all like still the children are much more open to learning in general, to what you help them, facilitate them with.
Mhm.
And so I have this educational part and then this HR part, and they both correlate and integrate. So that's what I find quite a more or less unusual combination, because mostly people who, if they are in talent acquisition or talent management, then they may do some education, but then it's only adult education. So, but I hardly met anyone who would be knowledgeable and experienced in child education and HR, because normally these are two worlds which never meet. And it's a pity, because actually we try to educate children at schools, and but we have no clue what happens when they when they go into the world of work, and there the picture is totally different. And then what I hear from employers and people on the other side, that they are totally unhappy with what comes out of schools. So this is kind of, for me, it's a very unusual situation where I see both, and I work in both. So I always try to also integrate them somehow, or to get insights from one to another. And also I found very polymathic, unique um, what do you call it, synergies in how you can apply ideas from alternative education to management. This is a very special field, very unique. There are some interesting examples, and it's really something very, very interesting. So this is one of my kind of most favorite things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so relevant too, because, I've worked in adult education for for the better part of a decade. If you include my doctoral work, then well over a decade. And my doctoral degree is in education and human and organizational learning. That's the exact degree title. So one of the things, though my focus has been more on adult education and how polymathy can be used professionally, there's a pipeline problem. The pipeline leading up to career field matters, and we need to be strategic about that. And many of the pedagogical approaches we use with young children don't always adequately prepare them for the working world. In fact, I heard this from the people I interviewed, actually, that, oh, well, when I'm younger, I'm sort of exposed to lots of topics in school, though they aren't linked. They're just standalone. Here's art, here's science, here's math. There's no linkages made most of the time. But then you get into, you turn 18 or you turn 22 and you need to work, and then all of a sudden you just have to pick one thing, and the sort of values you had in schooling that it should be diverse don't apply. And also, there's a real lack of self-directed learning. So let's talk for a minute about informal schooling for polymathic people. Like, we're talking K through 12, like up before college. Let's just talk there for a minute, since I know that's majority of your focus. What are the problems with formal schooling? What are the downsides and the weaknesses of the average status quo in the world right now?
Yeah, the problem is that formal schooling kills curiosity because of its nature. I mean, it can't do otherwise unless they take to other methods. So the method which pedagogy uses now, they're traditional methods. And there are other methods which classical, like formal schooling, doesn't know about. They're not interested to learn about it. So interested. And these are the methods used by alternative education, progressive educators and homeschooling parents. They constantly develop new methodologies how to work with children differently. But formal education has no interest in that whatsoever. I really tried. Sometimes, I just try to hardly, you only just raise your hand to try to say something. They were like, they are ready to kill you, because how can you dare to suggest something like that? But the thing is that formal schooling, like if you have a class of 25 children, and if you have 40 minutes or 45 minutes, 50 minutes for the lesson, then you just, even if one child, each child will ask only one question, then you have 25 minutes taken by the question. It means that you can't teach if everyone is curious. In a formal setting, you have to block curiosity, and this is what there are studies about it. There are actually teachers, they do confirm that. They say, I can't allow myself to give them this time to ask questions, because this will break the lesson. This will totally lead it somewhere else if every child will be curious. So what happens, children come very curious in the beginning, then like after the first year, they are already done mostly. Most of them have learned that they have no time to ask questions, have to keep them for themselves, maybe ask after or ask the parents or just don't ask. And that's it. So this is my main kind of my main
Critique? Your main critique, maybe?
critique point on the formal schooling, because curiosity is the essence of polymathy. A polymath is primarily a curious person. So killing that, you kill the rest. It's like the first thing, you just block it. You don't allow children to be curious because there is no time for that. That's the problem.
Yeah, I see that too. And it's what you're saying is very much related to my biggest critique of the K through 12 educational system. And that is that it's based almost entirely on banking education. Let me deposit this lesson, let me deposit this information into your mind because I say you should know it. It's just programming minds. And so there's not a whole lot of room left for self-directed learning, to have some agency and some voice and some say in your own mental programming. And to me, that seems borderline unethical. I'm going to put this stuff in your mind that may never be able to come out because I want you to have it in your mind. And yes, to have a civilized society, we all should know some math. We all should know some basic science. Like, yes, I know there are certain things we should all be programmed with. but I don't think the current educational models allow for enough self-directed learning. And that's the biggest change I would like to see, that a teacher becomes a guide to help you build your own learning agenda, your own plan, and then build creative, fun ways to learn. Like maybe one student's learning journey may include a visit to a museum or interviewing an expert in the field or watching some YouTube videos. There are so many different ways to learn, but you know, when you teach as if children are cattle, I don't like that model. I mean, my daughter is 6. She's finishing 1st grade right now, and she's a smart, curious, capable little girl. And she loves going to school to play and be with her friends. And when it comes to having to sit and listen and be quiet and do what you're told all day, like that's hard for her. It's not fun. It makes learning feel like a burden.
Yeah,
And learning
exactly.
should always be exciting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I completely agree. It kills curiosity.
Yeah, that's why when I saw that my daughter, I also have a daughter, she's 12 now. When I saw that she is that type of a person, that she is extremely curious and she is very like polymathic in her ways, so I realized that I will not be able to let her go to school. So
Yes, let's shift
so
gears
I
there.
could allow myself, I could allow it myself. We could effort that, let's put it like, because it's a privilege. I mean, a situation with homeschooling is very different in many countries. I know that in the US it's more like because of the religious reason, mostly like kind of Orthodox Christians, or some people do that. In like in UK, what I know, because I'm very much connected to a lot of homeschooling groups worldwide, I know what's happening everywhere. So in UK, it's mostly that they are children who are mentally abused, so they're because of mental stress, they or bullying or anything, they just quit schools. So these are mostly people homeschool because they don't want to be victims of bullying, because they're actually already victims of bullying, and then they go away. But in Austria, it's not the case. In Austria, I mean, it's mostly because people want just do something differently. And that is what was also my way, because yeah, you know, like also Waldorf school was the concept was developed by an Austrian. Austria is known for some very like revolutionary thinking personalities who revolutionary. Even Ivan Illich, you know, the one who is the author of Deschooling, is one of the most famous like anti anti-formal education movement leader. He immigrated to US. Actually, he was from Austria, also from Austrian Empire at that time. So yeah, Austria is such a place where you, at one point, you get very conservative, but on the other hand, you can become also very, very alternative. So this is what probably happened to me, although I was always a bit different than many my like schoolmates and everything. But the thing is that, so here I came personally to the idea to homeschool not for any like reasons, bullying or religious or whatever, just because I realized that this would be the best to give my child the freedom to learn and not to be suppressed by the way that she has to sit 6 hours a day, you know. Yeah, so exactly what you said, that this is what makes children, you know, it's not natural for them in this age to be seated all the time. So I managed that. Not as long as I wanted, but we're getting back to it again.
Yeah. You know, I want to ask you too, given you have experience with homeschooling, is what impact did you see on your daughter, like after she began to be homeschooled? Did you notice any changes in her?
No changes. She just kept being herself. And that's the difference, because children who go to school, they stop being themselves. I mean, they are themselves, but they a lot of things are being blocked. Yeah. And in her case, no, she's just herself, and that's the point. She remained herself. And what was there, it was this, of course, a big part is self-directed learning, although I was also guiding a lot, but I was like kind of following her interest and just giving her sources, like whatever, books, videos. We went very often to museums on nature, so I gave her resources to what interested her. So I kind of, it's just a facilitation. I facilitated her
Yes.
inquiries, and that's it. But also at the same time, I had my vision, what it means to what do you, because like a child, it may not need, it may not know that there are such things as history, for instance. Yeah, how will it know if it just like doesn't see anything or doesn't read any or whatever? So one of my one of my guidelines for myself was that I laid a background for her in world history. So we studied world history all the way from the year 6, that she, when she was 6, that she has a whole vision of a timeline of humanity, how humanity developed all over the world, and that she's comfortable and she sees this continuity. So for her, it's natural that humanity started somewhere and came there where we are. She sees the connections, and it's not because she was like herself curious, she was curious, but you have to give some ideas, at least, you know, you have to ignite this curiosity when the child has no idea that such things exist even. Yeah. So for some subjects, you have to show something that these things exist. So it's not like self-directed learning. You have to find, where will you get these insights from? So it's not out of the air. You have to show something, or yeah, whatever. So
I think it's a dance.
not...
I think you and your daughter were doing a dance of like, this is what I'm curious, and then you'd be like, come over here, and then she'd be like, how about over here? You know, you were doing a dance with her, a learning dance.
Maybe, yeah.
What? So tell me more, please, about your approach to homeschooling her, because you've said a little bit about what your sort of general approach was, but what else? Like, what else were your guiding principles or your practical approaches? Like, why did you do how you did with your daughter?
I must say one important point is that it was not her alone. I had also my nephew was involved. So we had actually 2 children who were homeschooled, and he is 3 years older than her. So I actually, we were doing a lot of things together. So although there has such a difference, but still, so we adjusted the program more kind of to his age. It means that actually she was already catching up all the time with him. So that's not as when you homeschool one child.
Right.
It's like basically you have a team and they are learning with each other, also boy and girl. So they have different like kind of ways to do things. And so
What a good memory too, for both of
uh,
them to have that time with their
yes,
cousin.
absolutely. It was so magical. 3 years we did it
And
together.
you,
It was yeah,
did it
yeah.
change the quality of your bond in some ways with your nephew and your daughter by going through the homeschooling process with them?
Yeah, of course. I
Brought you
mean,
closer?
what I mean, it was always good, the bond,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it became stronger in a way that we have this intellectual connection. It's not only emotional, it's also intellectual, because they know that if they are with me, then a lot of fascinating stuff will be happening. So they know that I bring inspiration and fascination. So this is what they know. So anytime we meet, like also my nephew, now he's in a normal school, and when he comes to visit us, he immediately gets into this feeling back that when we, oh, why don't we learn something new? And he's so, oh, I missed this time when we were homeschooling. It was so fascinating. because I also had one of my ideas what you have to, first of all, we watched each day at least one documentary. So one documentary a day is a must. And then one very special intellectual or experiential learning is a must. It means that there must be every day something which is absolutely memorable, fascinating, and new. So you keep this mind in awe, in awe of the beauty of the world.
Expanding.
There
It
is
keeps
actually
expanding.
there is a quote by Goethe, Wolfgang Goethe. He said exactly the same thing, that you keep your mind so fascinated by this. It changes everything, changes your perception. So this is what I feel I managed to keep them both actually fascinated, because this fades actually with lots of children. This fades away with schooling. This fascination for in front of this vast world, So we did a lot of everything, a lot of science, a lot of arts, a lot of nature, a lot of history, languages, dance, theater, music, painting, everything. So sports, of course. So it was like, a firework of
Yeah,
everything.
I love what you're saying, because it seems like you were able to facilitate something that's, I think, naturally in children when they're born, which is like, wow, 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 look at all this. And we are in a really magical experience, really, I
Yeah,
think. That, and if you can find awe, you should. It makes
yeah,
things more fun. But that gets sort of pushed out of us. Like, just sit in your desk, do what you're told, do this exercise, like, okay, go to the playground, then come back, and then go to the same playground tomorrow and come back. And then, you know, there's not a whole lot of magic and excitement and awe and fun in normal school.
yeah. It's difficult to make, because if you have this setting and you have this methodology which school teachers normally use, uh, you're bounded by that. You can't be so free that you experiment so much. Some people, they manage, but what is also happening today, I hear it from lots of teachers, most creative, most talented teachers, they run away from schools. They don't want anymore this bureaucracy. The bureaucracy is overwhelming.
Yeah.
And all these restrictions, they grab your time. You're not free to experiment. And this is that's why I propagate alternative education, because in alternative education you have more freedom, free time, freedom to experiment, and this is what is creativity for the teacher also. Yeah, they
You
need
know,
this freedom to practice to try things out.
let's talk about freedom for a minute too, because I've never really thought about self-directed learning as a kind of, or the kind of schooling you're talking about that makes it magical and fun and life is an exploration and magical. But you're right. There is a qualitative difference in how free you feel in traditional schooling versus the kind of learning that you're talking about. Tell me more about this, and why does freedom in this context even matter? Why is it important to be free intellectually or with your time or experientially? Like, I think this is an important point having to do with, are we free or not?
No, of course we are not free. I mean, we can't be free completely, it's clear, but it's the amount of freedom which,
Can you be more free?
how much, yeah, some are more, some are less free. So that's it. And normally what my observation is that polymaths are naturally tend to a lot of freedom.
More free.
And of course they need more freedom because they want to explore on their own. They there are beautiful examples which I love very much, of Darwin and Alexander von Humboldt, who had a lot of things in common. and they had this kind of freedom in childhood when they just, they were exploring the woods and nature. As children, they absolutely were not taking care of their classes and everything. So also William Blake, he was, his parents understood that he was special, so they allowed him actually to skip school sometimes and just to walk around London. And he said he just saw angels on the trees and was so, like dreamy boy. But actually it fruited, in their creations. Yeah. So lots of, also in my book I emphasize it, and you will definitely enjoy that I try to find out about the childhood of most polymaths, whatever I could. So there are always some lines about the childhood, because that was one of my particular interests. How did these people grew up? What made them to
Yeah.
what they became, and particularly how their parental attitude was, and how what are the environment, what was the environment, and how much freedom they enjoyed. And my learning was from all these, like I analyzed over 200 polymaths, biographies of 200 polymaths from around the world, and around in different epochs. So not only like very ancient, or not only Renaissance, different ones. So one and the same thing which you find among all of them is just that this element of freedom and self-directed learning is just a signature of any polymath. So at some point all of them had this time, either in childhood or later in adolescence or later in life, where they were free to learn and free to be on their own. So this is my pledge, like I said, please parents, always, because I also give now a lot of people contact me for career counseling for teenagers, to help them with career choice. And this is one of my first questions. I always ask parents, what does your child do? Or I ask the teenager, what do you do in your free time? When nobody is watching, what are you doing in this moment? And often it's something what they even don't expect, or even at least you ask, what did you do when you were small, or like in kindergarten? Okay, especially if there were no mobile phones at that time. So because today, of course, you have your mobile phone, but still, even with a mobile phone, if you play games, then what games do you play? Why these kind of games? Why particularly that game? What fascinates you about this game? Because it gives you a lot of answers, and you will see why, actually. But the thing is that this element of freedom is the key element in learning. It's what my observation is, and it's practically absent from their modern life.
Yeah.
They do a lot of formal schooling, then they come home, they do homework, or they attend classes for creativity, but there again, it's directed. So my question is, how much time is self-directed? And here I would recommend everyone who is interested in this topic. There is this amazing a researcher, a psychologist, Peter Gray, an American psychologist, who specializes on free education and self-directed learning. He writes on Psychology Today, and he has some books, and also, yeah, he runs his blog and everything. He does his own studies and collects other studies which are related to self-directed learning. And he says that actually the children today, they almost have no chance to play freely, to play in a non-organized manner, not to play the games which adults teach them, but themselves to play self-organized. This almost doesn't happen. And interestingly, there are studies which link this to inability to function emotionally later.
Wow,
So
that's
we
crazy.
lose this. It's really, yeah, it's really connected, how much freedom in play, and then how much freedom in learning we have. And today we don't have it.
So here's the aha moment that is happening for me right now. Thank you. Is that so I know having studied adult polymaths that they value freedom, that they value the ability to self-author, to self-direct their learning, to spend their time as they wish. I know adults value that. But what I hadn't given thought to is how for children, K through 12 education, how we actually train them how to not be free. We train them to be sort of unnatural in that way and to betray their own desires, their own curiosities, to just do what they're told. And this is what we're making in our society. Just do what you're told. Learn what we want you to learn. Don't think for yourself. Don't play. Don't have fun. Don't explore. Just focus here. What we're telling you, let me program your mind. Here's why that's so dangerous for me, is that the quality of our lives is largely governed by the quality of our mind, our mental space. Yes, the physical world matters, but most people have a house and food and access to plumbing and all the things that are physical needs. But the quality of our mind space, drives the quality of our life. And we are training people how to be mental slaves in school. And that's what scares me. And on top of that, let me tell you, I had this epiphany this morning when I was AI is here. And the adult ability to really think, and even maybe with kids using AI, like our ability to think and generate thought and synthesize is maybe in jeopardy, because now we have this tool that's just going to do it for us. And that also does not make us free. If we lose the ability to have a quality mind, to be free mentally, to have intellectual sovereignty over our mind space, if we lose that, then we just become an animal here on planet Earth. So critically important for me to be mentally free. And we need to train kids on what that looks like as they're growing up learning, not just go, oh, you're an adult, now you can try to be free. No, we need to foster that mental freedom all along, just because we're human and we deserve to have sovereignty over our own mind space. We deserve to at least be a co-driver of our own learning journeys, don't we?
Absolutely. But the question is, who is interested in that? I mean, what kind of government is interested in that?
Government, no. Government wants minions who just do what they're told, cogs in wheels.
Yeah, that's the point. So the question is also, because, like I'm also involved in a lot of discussions with educators, worldwide, school educators and alternative schools, and everybody's saying, yeah, we have this innovation and that innovation, and let's apply that, and we have to achieve this and that. And then, but at some point, you always face this glass ceiling, At some point, you do whatever you want, and then the state says no. Until this, you can go, but then you can't go. So, like, for instance, can you imagine in Germany, which is kind of, like progressive country in so many ways, and leading democratic country and everything. In Germany, homeschooling is illegal. You will be in prison if you home educate your children. And I know of cases where Germans actually get an asylum in US because they are they're in danger to go to prison in Germany.
I find that so scary. Like, and by the way, I worked in the US federal government for 15 years. And I've also studied government. As Dr. Angela, I've studied the courts and the prisons. And I'm deeply disturbed by the behavior of many of our governments across the globe. Deeply disturbed at the dehumanization and control that they exert over the very people they exist to serve. I find it unacceptable. Government needs to do better. But anyway,
but we are also, we are also part of the, that's the question. Where shall we start? Because government is also, it's also us. It's all societies. When we say the society is to blame, but we are part of the society. So there are lots of questions also about democracy. Yeah, so it's a very complex,
It
complex
is.
question.
We need to do better, though. There's definitely room for improvement. And part of what I've tried to argue is that if you want to fix something, if you really want to improve education or government, the place to start is to first look at what's not working.
Yeah.
What is broken? What's not working for us? You must look at the inconvenient truths in front of you before you can even begin to fix it. So I consider myself at this point as sort of a critiquer of education and a critiquer of government. Not because I hate government, not because I hate education, because I love those things. And I think they
Yeah.
can do better. And we must. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about alternative education? I know you've got a lot of background and experience, exposure, knowledge as it pertains to alternative education.
Yeah, I can only say that if you have a child which shows polymathic traits, and like polymathic traits means what? First of all, it's extraordinary curiosity, which is, I mean, I should say it's really not every child is extraordinarily curious. It's just not. Some children are extraordinarily curious and some not. And it's just the truth. So people are different. And those people who are absolutely, you know, keep this hunger for knowledge throughout their lives, they become polymaths and all that. But even as children, you would see a child which is amazingly curious and the other one less curious. So if you have this one who is amazingly curious, then you really have to see that you facilitate in a way whatever you can allow yourself, but either you homeschool or you try to get this kid into an alternative school. This is really my most heartfelt and recommendation, because what I've seen how it works. Because in alternative schools, what they lack, according to me, they do lack this amount of academic knowledge, like which I would prefer. That's why actually I didn't send my daughter to an alternative school, because I wanted to give her much more of knowledge, to facilitate her in acquiring more knowledge, more than any school would able to give. But on the other hand, they allow a child to flourish as it is, and they have immense respect to the child's soul and nature. This is a huge difference. If you see an alternative school and formal school, there's so much of attention and so much of understanding for the needs of the child. So they let it be as it is. They may not over like stimulated, but they support curiosity and creativity, which is normally not much supported in formal education. So for me, it's like the first advice which I always give when people ask me, if you have a possibility, use this. Send your kid into an alternative school. I mean, there are different ones, like I wouldn't much recommend Waldorf for certain reasons, but Montessori is more or less okay. It's also not 100% good. I would recommend the ones where people really go, where the educators create their own unique learning model, because there are lots of new models. I mean, Montessori and Waldorf were created 100 years ago. 100 years ago, for that time, for that setup, historical and economical and social. So they do not actually fit today. But if I have to choose between a formal school and Montessori school, I would definitely go for that. And in my book, those who will read it, you will find a very interesting facts about what happens to people who, I mean, I made a list of people who studied in alternative education, who became very prominent leading personalities, who actually do things differently, and we all profit from that. So it's like they give you this schools, they give you the ability to be different and to stay different and to develop your own ways, which is in formal schooling almost not possible. You have to remain yourself, you have to fight for it. And there you just thrive because it's the soil which is meant for that. So the progressive education is this kind of.
Wow, how different would our world be if like every person got to have that sort of a education?
Yeah, it would be very different.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I mean, this is how we came. Actually, if you take a historical perspective, what we will see that first of all, throughout history until the 20th century, most of the people have never been educated. Yeah, most of the people were educated vocationally, and those who were really well educated, they were mostly educated at home.
What is
because
it? Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
because hardly anyone could, there were no school, I mean, schools were minimum. Yeah, schooling was almost not there, non-existent. Yeah, in a way we understand it today. Yeah, so mostly all the people, if you assume that people who shaped our civilization were first, they were polymaths. I mean, you take the list of names and you will really make big guys like that. Today I just published an article about Newton. Yeah, everybody thinks he was a physician, but he was a polymath with very unexpected expertise in like finance and actual criminalistics. It was amazing. Yeah, you read it. And so all of people who shaped us, our way of thinking, our way I mean, the global civilization, not only Western civilization. I speak for the whole civilization because polymaths are those who shaped the civilization. So they shaped it. And then at the same time, most of them studied self-directed. Most of them studied at home. Those coming from wealthy families, they were home educated. They never went to school. So basically, if we talk about schooling is a phenomenon of our times. It has never existed in history as such. So mass education has never existed. People never learned like that. Most of the people learned from the parents. On if it was a vocational training, then they learned from a master, a real master in some crafts. Or if they were privileged enough and rich enough, then they had the best teachers the parents could allow to learn the best things. So basically, the formal schooling is absolutely a recent phenomenon, and that's why it's also hard for us to leave that, because it's not natural. There is nothing like this in a human DNA. Till the 20th century, we didn't know that on that scale. It's not in our genes, that you go and sit 6 or 10 hours, 8 hours a day in one closed building and with people of your age, only of your age in your class. Yeah, I mean, or even that, why don't mix them? Because in a family you have different ages, no?
Yeah,
So
you can
you
learn
learn how
from older and younger people.
Yeah, that's it. So it's a huge topic. I'm not saying that we have to remove all. No, but my vision is that it will naturally happen. We are going towards that already. Also because of the AI, also because of this demand for freedom. Lots of people over the world are taking kids from schools, lots of them, because also there are online schools. So basically people say, okay, why should I go? So in America, I know people who say, why should I send my child to a school where probably a shooting will take place? Why should I send it? Then better it stays home and learns in an online school. Okay, fine. I mean, at least we'll be safe. So it's like a lot is changing, and it will change. And my vision is that what will happen ultimately, the formal schooling will collapse into different ways of learning. People will learn in alternative schools and homeschooling, in all. There will be myriads of different schools, all sorts of and it will be less and less and less and less control, because at some point the state will not be able to control that. It's already gone that way. So maybe, I don't know, 10 years or whatever, but also because of the AI. So a lot will change. We will see it in our lifetimes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So the school as we know it will not exist in like maybe decade or two. It will not, because it will not be able to exist in this way.
Yeah. You know, governments are in charge of public schools, obviously, and I'm just speaking in the United States, but in all 50 states here in the United States, we spend more on prisons than we do on our schools.
Oh God, this is
Can you
really
believe that?
horrible.
I can't believe that we citizens tolerate that. That
But
we
it's
spend
not a
more on
known fact,
over
maybe.
punishing criminals and doing really expensive incarceration for people who do drugs or poor people who steal something. Like, we'd rather incarcerate them for many years and traumatize them, and then they get out, and then what happens? You know, they're not well prepared to reintegrate. We spend more on punishment than on uplifting the future. Like, it blows
Do
my
people
mind.
know that actually? Do
I
they
don't
know
think they
that?
do. I don't think they do. I think
That's a,
everybody in the United States has a general understanding that there's not enough money to really prepare schools. Everybody knows teachers spend their own personal funds on classroom supplies. Every parent knows we will be asked to donate. We will be asked to participate in a fundraiser. We know that we don't put enough funds into the educational system, but why? And it's because we're spending it on the Department of Defense. We spend a third or half of our federal budget on the war machine.
yeah.
And then on the
Don't tell me.
state level, we spend more on the prison machine than we do on our children in school. And that's a fact in all 50 states. And it really disturbs me. But we're not going to resolve that in today's chat. One other question I wanted to ask you before we wrap up, and it's sort of a philosophical question.
Yeah.
What do you think it means to be well educated? What does that look like? What does a well-educated person, how are they able to think or behave or live in the world differently than a poorly educated person?
Yeah, it's a complex thing. As a popular word says, yeah, it's a complex thing. So of course it has many layers. Yeah, it's there are all these kinds of intelligence. Yeah, it's intellectual. First of all, cognitive abilities. I mean, yeah, if you have good cognitive abilities, then you are much better off easily. Yeah. Then good memory, that you remember people, you remember, I mean, names of people. Many people have problems with remembering names, which is actually not very like polite when you communicate, you know, like it makes a big difference when you show that you remember things about the person. For instance, you relate, you know, it builds up this connection.
Mm-hmm.
Then of course the knowledge, the broader the better. I mean, the polymathic knowledge that especially in disparate fields, yeah, if you can cover humanities and science, and at least that you know, not maybe some fields you may know in depth, of course, but you are able to keep up a talk on that, or at least to know what it is about in general, you know, like you are not feeling lost, that you feel comfortable in general. Also, like the basic for me personally, because I'm a history fan, of course, but I think history is something what makes you very comfortable if you are good in history, because especially today, you know, all this brainwash stuff which is on the rise, you know, everywhere, all the conspiracies theories and everything, it's all includes a lot of history, and most of the time you can trace it that it's all fake, starting from where people take the facts. But even to understand that it might be a fake, you need a basic knowledge of history. at least at what time, what things could be possible or not. Like I see these things every day. So it helps me a lot since I studied history mostly, I can say it, autodidactically. So like in the recent 5 years, because of my interest also in polymathy, in research, I just realized I can't do any research unless I educate myself in world history. And like for world history, you have even no study. I mean, there is no um, university like you can't, if you study history, then you have to specialize, like medieval history or whatever. So there is no university study where you say, I want to know everything from Stone Age till today, covering all epochs, all civilizations, all continents, everything. There is no such study. You can only do it on your own. So this is what I did. I really delved very deep into that for many years, also while homeschooling my kids. So actually I was all the time, watching tons of documentaries, reading books, visiting museums with them. So actually that was part of also my education, homeschooling. Many parents say that when they homeschool, they actually homeschool themselves in a way.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you, is that how has being involved in the homeschooling of your nephew and your daughter changed you?
A
Like,
lot. I mean, absolutely. I could really thrive, because I could leave all my interests, which were closed before, like really I started doing so many things with them, which I never did, or which I did as a child, but then left. So it was a explosion of my own curiosity, my own creativity, my own learning, I really became a much more better educated person thanks to homeschooling. Coming back to your question about education. So the versatility, then emotional intelligence belongs to that, of course. Empathy, because just being smart enough but not feeling other people makes no, what's that? It's just an ego and nothing else. So a lot of layers. So but I must admit that I do value a lot of this intellectual knowledge, although I also consider it's important to have this physical intelligence, to dance, on to do some martial arts or whatever, so to cook, I don't know, to create something with your hands. This is also a part of intelligence, which is very important. But for me personally, it's important that we can discuss anything with a person. So if an educated person is the one which we can start, I don't know, discussing shoes and then stop in the, I don't know, Egyptian pyramids or recent DNA tests, developments or whatever. So it's like my fascination. I love to discuss everything.
yeah, that versatility and that broadness is being able to intelligently discuss lots of things is definitely a good indicator that someone's well educated. Can I share what I think a well educated person is?
Please.
For me, I mean, I agree with everything you said, but if I had to distill it into one essence, and mind you, I have a doctoral degree in education. I thought about this. Be really well educated in my mind means the person has figured out how to learn, unlearn, and relearn with great competence, and that they think for themselves. So to me, a well-educated person isn't just someone who has recorded and memorized lots of facts or opinions other people have, but they're able to generate observations, generate opinions, generate critical thought. They're well educated enough to be a creator of new knowledge in some ways, even if it's just in their own mind. They can actually think. They can actually think rather than just repeat what someone else has told them to memorize. That is a well-educated person for me.
Absolutely agree. Yeah. New knowledge is a wonderful topic, which is yeah, it's one of my like recent biggest fascinations to create a new knowledge, and I see a lot of potential there also for polymaths, because it's actually what polymaths do. They synthesize and create new knowledge, which
Exactly.
is, yeah,
Yeah,
so
knowledge
it's
creation is so important. That's what's going to drive humanity forward. We need to create new insights, new information, new knowledge. And at this stage of human history, we've mostly exhausted siloed, departmentalized information. Like we've learned a lot about individual fields. And now where the payoffs are is when you integrate across fields and you begin to coalesce information into something that is more holistic systems thinking. Like that's where the payoffs now are in the future is let's stop slicing and dicing information because it's more efficient or easier. And let's really see the linkages and get creative and make innovations based on being open-minded to what is possible rather than just what is. I feel like I've been preaching. But I'm preaching to the choir with you because you already agree. Anyway.
yeah, but yeah, of course I can't, how can I not agree on that? It's so beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Well, do you have any final thoughts for anyone listening or watching this? Like any final thoughts you'd like to share as it pertains to education and polymathy?
Mm. Yeah, I can just say that we are, yeah, in the outlook of AI age,
Mhm.
there is a whole new era which we're entering, and it will be before the generative AI really snaps over. I mean, we will see what happens, but at least before that time, we have amazing opportunities to learn. But I mean, go for self-directed learning. Don't be afraid of that. But what we all as polymaths also have to work on somehow collectively, because this not, I'm kind of to bring this agenda, but it's really hard. For instance, how can we make self-directed learning acceptable in the world of work, so
Mm.
that it will be also appreciated and accepted that this person has taught himself that skills and is able to do that even without a degree or something. Yeah. So it's
Mhm.
another topic which I feel, especially for polymaths, is crucial, because polymaths are acquiring a lot of knowledge and skills self-directed, and it's which we can make it one of our topics to speak about it, at least. In education there is already a trend. I can see a trend to they discuss of there, but they always uh, um, they kind of bump into that fence that there is no way to combine it with formal education. It's very hard. How can you do that? So it's a crucial thing, I think, in the next time for us, like as polymaths, to see what can we do in this direction. In general, that what I would always recommend, please, I mean, it's a big word. Talk about your polymathic personality and traits with other people. Tell them that this exists, because many people, they just even don't talk about it, or they are shy, or they feel that they're like self-imposed or whatever. But each of us, we all have to contribute to that topic. And if you can write articles, write blogs, write books, write PhDs. I mean, I would make a call for polymaths who feel that they can contribute, that they do get involved more into this field, because we need this collective effort to get this phenomenon, this beautiful phenomenon, accepted again. It was always a part of human nature, but today it's just a little bit, like a taboo. So we have to get it back. And my call is that if we could make a collective effort, all of us, somehow to elevate this phenomenon and to contribute to its spreading by sharing our experiences and our knowledge on it.
Yeah,
This
for
would
sure.
would do a lot of good to education.
Yeah, for
Also.
sure. So I'll share a final thought too as we wrap up as it pertains to education and polymathy. You know, we're born into this world and our minds are like blank slates, like chalkboards waiting to be written on. And we pretty blindly let ourselves be programmed. Like you turn on TV, programming. You go to school, programming. And maybe what you're being programmed with is great. And maybe what you're being programmed with is not great. And so if you want to be really polymathic, and if you want to be free, if you want to be self-authored, we actually need to be really careful about the education we let ourselves receive. We need to be really thoughtful about the ideas and concepts we buy into. It's great to learn about something, but when you learn, have a critical eye. Do I agree? Do I not agree? Is there a different way to think about that? Like just to actually let the gears of your mind work and move. Because make no mistake about it, we're all heavily programmed. That's what education is. Sure. It's mind programming. That's what education is. And the media and just language in general, it's like coming at us, trying to take over, you know, like implant itself. Thought viruses is what I call it. It is what it is. But I think if you want to be free and vibrant and fully your actual self, you have to take everything that comes at you with a grain of salt. Do I want to adopt this philosophy? Do I agree with what I'm being told, or do I want to put my own spin on it and have an original perspective? Actually, use my thought, my thinker, to exercise my brain and my mind. So education and polymathy cannot be separated. Learning and polymathy.
Learning, yeah.
Learning and education are not quite the same. There's a lot of overlap in that Venn diagram, but it's not. You can be educated and not have learned much, and you can learn outside of education all the time.
Yeah.
Life involves constant learning if you let it. All right. Well, that's my final thought. Anything else from you, Xenia?
That's it.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for watching. I look forward to sharing this with you. I hope you enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you, Angela, for inviting me. It was a great pleasure. And yeah, let's meet.
We'll meet again.
Yes, sure.
We'll talk about your book next time.
Yes, please. Okay. All the best. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.